All right, everybody. Welcome to another Ask a Dev Unreal Engine tutorial live stream. My name's Kevin. We try to do these every week, and today is going to be a little bit of a wild ride. We are going to be doing a whole bunch of character animation today. So we have, generally speaking, I always joke about this, we have just the right amount of crazy to do live Unreal Engine blueprint tutorials, but today is a special kind of crazy because we're actually going to teach you all how to animate. So what's some context on this? Actually, let's just do a quick, I'll show you quickly what we're going to be doing today. We are going to be building this animation. We're actually going to be animating this character and building this from scratch. So what is the context for what we're doing and why we're doing this? And who is this video for? So it turns out that our community, there are a lot of people in our community who are very new to game dev and dev in general, and we don't even know what each of the individual pieces are yet. We don't know what a model is or how joints work or anything like that. So we're going to be teaching those, or at least giving some people some frame of reference for what it really means when we're talking about character animation. Two, as part of the context of our overall I'm a little frazzled today. As far as like our overall context and the overall scheme of this series for pets, everything in Unreal. We started with building our pawn, then we created our skeleton, then we did all of our weight painting, we created our control rig. Now we have our control rig, we're going to animate it so that in the coming weeks we can do things like set up our Anim blueprints and create our AI and all those kinds of things, but all in Unreal. Also, maybe you are already an animator and you're curious about what kinds of tools and stuff are available in Unreal. That's another way that this might be useful. And then finally, you are a legend, and it's just going to be funny to watch somebody try to explain all of animation in an hour. But it should be fun as we do it. So speaking of community, huge shout out to ours. Thank you all for being like the best part of why I do this. Especially our Patreon members. As always, the way this is going to go, I'm going to go through the tutorial. If you all have questions along the way, hit me up. If it applies to the current topic, I'll try to answer that as we go. If they're more general or they're super chats or things like that, I'll come back and hit those things at the end. So, and then again, shout out to our Patreon members for helping make this all possible. Oh yeah, by the way, my name's Kevin. I am currently a senior principal tech artist at Riot Games. In a past life, I was a character animator, and I love character animation. So with that, if everybody's ready, let's get started. Josh, off the rails, welcome back to the stream. It's good to see you all again. Okay, so where are we going to start? First, let's get this out of the way. And first, we're going to do some scene setup. We need to know where we're going to animate. And let's talk a little bit about that. So generally speaking, when you create in Unreal Engine, let me make sure that I've got this set up right so you all can see my screen. You can. Okay, good. So generally speaking, in Unreal Engine, you load up, you're on the third person character, your content, etc. I like to have a separate level that I use for creating my animations. And in this case, right now, this is just a blank level. There is nothing in this. A lot of times when I'm animating bipeds and things like that, what I'll do is I'll drop like a cube in here, and I will stretch this out and scale it to behave like the floor, so that I have a floor for my character to stand on. But because we are actually going to be doing a hover idle of a flying dragon, I know it's a wyvern, I'm not going to even have a floor in the scene. The next thing I'm going to do when I open this level is I'm going to drag in my control rig. And so all I've done here is I've just dragged the control rig into my scene, and at that point we are ready to go. Now this is a little bit different than the way we animated in some of our previous tutorials. In our previous tutorials, what we did is we took an already existing animation, we baked it to the control rig, and then we made edits on top of that. This is completely different because we are starting from scratch. So in the vein of starting from scratch, I've created a folder here called in my Anim folder called source sequences for now. That's what I'm going with. To get started, we need a level sequence so that we can work within the level sequence to start setting our keyframes. Now, let's take a look underneath our animation, or no, I'm sorry, cinematics. I need a level sequence. I'm going to call this my level sequence. And this is going to be Czar, that's the name of this character. And this is going to be our hover idle. Our hover idle. Okay. And Westends, welcome back. So with our hover idle, when we double click on this, we're starting to get into the point where in a minute, we're going to be able to start animating. And then we're going to talk a little bit about some fundamentals of animation, things like that. One of the things I need in order to animate this character is I need a track to work with. In this case, I'm going to add my control rig. And when I do that, next thing I need to do at this point, I'm almost there. If I press Shift 8 or up here in our drop down, I can choose animation mode. When we get into animation mode, what we have is we have our viewport. This is where we see our character. We have our timeline down here, although nothing is currently on our timeline. We have a bunch of tools over here on the left and details on the right. Let's get to this in a second, and we're going to take a break. First, I'm going to, under the transform, I'm going to set a keyframe. Actually, no, I'm not. Let me see here. How am I going to do this? Oh, for the control rig, we are going to... Hold on a second. I just blanked on... Why can't I pick my outliner control rig? I always told you all something always goes fun in these. I should be able to just key on this thing. Track, actor. We added our control rig. We don't need a specific animation. Where are my controls, y'all? Oh, here we go. Control rig controls? None. I got none. I got nothing in my animation outliner either. We're gonna reopen this. Let's just save this and reopen it. And let's take our control rig off. Assign actor. Man. Anybody? Of course not. FK control rig. Okay, maybe that did it. Here's our control rig. Oh no, look. Oh my goodness, that's cool. What a happy accident that was. Okay, so this is not what we want. What that did is that created an FK control rig track, which actually literally just created a whole brand new control rig from scratch. Let's just delete this. And I'm going to do this a little bit differently. Let's add our... My goodness. Why, where, y'all? Okay, hold on. Let's open up a previous level sequence just to see if something else is going on here. There's control rig. We know it works. Okay, I think I see what we're doing here. Let's go back to our hover idle. We added our control rig, and we're going to add a... Nope. Y'all, I can't even get this thing to start. Add an animation. Trigger, repeater, mater, actor. Y'all, I can't even get this start. Re-add the acro to the sequence. Here, let's just go back from scratch. I literally just dragged and dropped this before. I'm gonna delete this. Let's delete this. Let's take this and let's add in our control rig from the mesh folder to the level. There it is. My goodness. What the heck? It was supposed to be just drag and drop. I told you all, these always go fun. Okay, so now that we have that, let me just center everything and make sure we're at 0. Cool. So we're in our sequence. Here's our control rig. These are all of our controls, and we're gonna get started here in a second. So basically at this point, our goal is, as I said, to animate this character. What that means is what we're going to do is we are going to be setting what are called poses or keyframes. And effectively, we're going to take all of these controls that we've created and we're going to use these to pose our character out. Now, there's generally 2 primary workflows that you can use when you're working with animation. One is pose to pose, which means effectively what you're going to do is you're going to create a pose and then you're going to fast forward in time, create another pose, and then you basically work between the poses because you know in your mind what that looks like. Another workflow is what's called straight ahead, where what you do is you start at the beginning and then you just, as you move forward in time, you basically animate all of the in-betweens and stuff as you go. There's pluses and minuses to both. We're actually going to be working more pose to pose. But before we do any of that, as with all animations, generally speaking, where we want to start is we want to start with some reference. So let's take a look at some reference about what we're doing. I found some really cool stuff. Over here on the right, we have a bunch of flight reference from the side for basically a bunch of different flying animals. In this particular case, I actually really like the stuff for the flying bat and the bird. This dragon or wyvern is a little bit more like a bat, so we're going to probably lean towards more bat-like. And then also, all of the Muybridge stuff. Basically, animators are constantly looking for reference, whether they recorded themselves, online, video, etc., that they can use to reference some of the stuff. So speaking of that, when we look at the Muybridge stuff for the bird, you can kind of see some of the poses that your animation might hit along the way. So what we're going to do is we're going to use a combination of these visual references and these poses to animate out our dragon flying. So let's go ahead and do that. I'm going to start by basically setting a keyframe, it's called, for everything on the first frame. The reason I want to do that is a couple things. So let's talk about your default setup. When you first come into Sequencer, there's a bunch of things that, actually I'll explain that in a second. Effectively, all of my controls are here. These are all of my controls. And if I pick on them, it's going to show the current track and the animation for those controls. If I click this little circle, you can see I can add a new keyframe at the current time. What this is going to do is that is going to set a keyframe on every single control for my character. And the reason I want to do that is because as I start posing this character, I want it to remember where the character is in time at that particular frame. So let's do that. And I want to show you all a couple of problems or some things that you may want to consider. When we pose this wing, I'm just going to straighten this out for our flapping motion. You'll notice that if I do that and then I switch time, it snaps back. It lost the pose. So this is part one. You need to set keyframes. So I have a close friend at work I joke with all the time. He's an insanely talented animator and sometimes forgets to set keyframes. But anyways, I'm gonna go to frame 1, and there's 2 ways to set keyframes as we're working. All right, one is I can move this object, and then every time I move it, I can press the S key, and that's going to set a keyframe. Watch what happens if I don't press S. If I move this object, rotate it into place, when I go to the next one, and I rotate it in place and I press the S key, it remembers, but the one before doesn't. So the way I like to work is I turn on Autokey. That is this button here that's in the graph bar. When I turn this on, what will happen is anytime I change a control, usually if there's a key on it, it will automatically set a key, so I don't have to remember. So I just start with everything, frame 1 keyed, and now we're going to go through and do the work to get this first pose in place. Now also, I am looking at the silhouette of the character. I am not looking at the silhouette of the controls because they're a bit off. So over here on the left, you can do things like hide control shapes. And now as you can see, I can focus on what the shape of this wing looks like at this point in time. In addition, over here on the right, I have an Anim outliner. So if I'm looking for controls, I can get to those. And then for those of you that are animation savvy, you can do things like create control pickers and stuff like that in Engine using utility widgets. All right, so we've got that wing kind of posed out to start with. There's going to be a couple things that I'm going to do, and I have a couple of caveats. So a couple of challenges about animating this dragon in an hour with you all is we are using an FK only rig. What does that mean? That means basically it means that each pose, everything I animate, as I explained in previous demonstrations, it's forward kinematics. It's a way of working basically that means that if I want to move a joint, everything below that is going to get affected. And so as a result of that, if for example I were to move the chest, the wings will move as well. And that's just kind of part of the way this works. So for now, we're just going to pose out this left wing. I'm also only working on the left side for right now. And I'm actually not going to go too crazy with this because we need to do some stuff with the body. So let's take the spine. I'm just trying to get this first pose set up, and then we're going to get into this other stuff. So here, let's take the spine and let's rotate this down. Okay, let's rotate our legs back. So for those of you that have never seen animation before, don't know what it is, this is it. Basically frame by frame, picking each of these controls, putting them in place, getting the pose down you want, setting a keyframe, getting it all kind of working. Now once we do that, the computer will help us resolve some of the motion and stuff, but there's still quite a bit of work to do. Let's see here. This is our tail. I want my tail base. So let's get this up, and things will hopefully start to move a little bit faster once we get this initial pose. Now, interestingly enough, for some reason the right click drag doesn't work over here in our tools outliner, so I'm just going to use shift clicks. Let's bring our head up, pose this in place. Okay, now let's take our wing, bring this a little bit flatter, and bring our control back. Okay, so a couple things to talk about here. We have kind of a first pose, undo, on the left side, which is good. I've set a key, and I'm looking at this reference and the different poses here. So this one down here in the bottom, second from the right, is kind of like as our wings are coming down, they're stretched out fully. Our fingers are going to be open because we want to maximize the amount of surface area for the wing for lift. And as our wing comes through, we're even going to animate the fingers to open up. And then as it pulls back, we're gonna close them up so it's more efficient going back up, so we can come back down again. But we need to start with at least a pose. So this is basically the pose at the start of our animation. It looks pretty good. Now, I'm going to work a little bit messy starting off with because I'm using pose to pose. All I care about right now are my poses. Let's see here. Can an image be overlaid so reference is on screen with opacity? Okay, is there a mirror button available for the wings? Okay, Weston's really great questions. We're actually going to be talking about the mirror. I am specifically working left side only because I'm going to show you how to handle the mirroring here in a minute. I am going to at least pose out the right side so that it's not super distracting, so that it's at least in a straight line. And then we're only going to focus on the left side. Now, one of the reasons for that is, to Weston's point, the way you mirror is like, it's not super fast. There should just be a mirror button. I have not found one. I found a workaround for it. And one of the things spoiler alert, one of the things I found as far as animating was in Unreal Engine, there would be a couple of tools that I would want to build and have available to me. And one of them is a mirror button, so that things like this would work. Okay, but overall, here we go. We've got our first frame and we are now going to start moving on. Now I'm going to take this frame. I'm going to make sure everything, like we've already keyed it. So now let's start to add in some of our other poses. Okay, so we're working on the wing flap. I'm going to take my wing clavicle. I am going to switch to world space. That's this key up here. You can just click on that to change it to world space. I'm going to bring my clavicle down because my clavicle is actually going to drive the motion, and the upper arm and everything like that is just going to overlap it. As I mentioned, at this point, I want the wings full extension. I'm going to switch back to local mode so that I am animating these things in context. Okay, and then I'm going to do the same thing for my index control too. So let's take our index control and really spread it out there. Okay, so that wing is like full open at this point as it's coming back down. Now I'm also going to take a minute here. I'm going to shift click all of these, and then I'm going to make sure I am in local mode and kind of bend them back a little bit. So we get this nice kind of like beautiful drag silhouette. A couple of these controls need some extra love. Okay, cool. So that's kind of our next pose. Now, as you're working, what does that look like? When we go back and forth, you can see my wing is moving. How am I switching back and forth? I'm switching back and forth using comma and period. And so what we're going to do is we're just going to go through and basically switch back and forth in time and set up our poses. So I'm going to go to the next pose. I'm working kind of fast and furious here because, again, I'm just working pose to pose. I'm not super stressed about the timing of anything now. I just want the pose set up. And we're going to actually change this a little bit, but if we go scroll, I am gonna go ahead and key all on everything just to make it easier, because right now when I'm hopping between frames, it's missing the middle frame. So here we go. That way every control I have selected, I can kind of cycle through it. Okay, so we have two poses right now. We should probably take, actually we'll fix all that in a second. This pose is gonna need some work. Let's just take this and bring it. Somehow I missed my index. Here we go. So we'll take all of these and we're going to wrap them kind of the other way, because there's going to be an overlap here to create a nice kind of silhouette for us to work with. Okay, so that's cool. All right, so we've got 3 poses going. Our wings are starting to flap, or at least one of them. And then what we're going to do is we're going to go and do the next pose. So let's take our clavicle. Let's go, I'm going back to world space for this for a second. We're going to bring our clavicle back up. And as our clavicle comes up, our up wing is going to come up. As our up wing comes up, let's go back and look at our reference. You can see these cool little W-shaped poses, or M's, more like an M. These are kind of like our wing passing poses. That's kind of like what we're shooting for here. So we're going to crank up our upper arm, but then we're going to reverse our lower arm and our wrist to help us create that kind of W-ish looking pose. So we get this nice kind of pass through. And we can sort of exaggerate this a little bit. Now, we are going to, hold on. We are going to be using, I'm going to hide these again. Hide the control shapes. We're going to be using, it's interesting because when you look at these shapes, they look very organic, right? But there's only 3 joints in here, right? And so how do we get those nice smooth arcs and stuff? And a lot of that comes from, in the case of the bird, the feathers and things like that. So in this case, we are going to be using the membrane to help us get some of that nice kind of curved overlapping look. Okay, so far, here we go. We're getting there. Let's do one more wing pose. We're gonna go to the top. So let's take, and I'm gonna cheat. I'm gonna cheat this one, interestingly enough, because I want to show you another tool that is common. So what we could do, I want to copy this pose as my starting point for my wings up in the sky pose. So what I'm gonna do is I'm gonna middle drag, and you'll notice that when I middle drag on this timeline, my viewport's not updating. That is awesome. It's a very Maya way of working. I don't know if Blender works this way as well, but what happens is I can now move to a new point in time, and then what I can do is I can go through and I can set a keyframe on all, for example. Okay, now when we do that, what happens is you'll notice that the wing goes straight back down. That's okay. That was on purpose, because I wanted to use that as a starting point. If I go back to world space here on the clavicle, I can move it up, and then we can take our wing control and move it up. And we're trying to get this high pose. Let's see here. And I'm going to exaggerate it. Like, this is where the upper part of the wing is. I'm going to exaggerate this quite a bit, just for fun. And we'll take our wrist and we'll do the same thing. Okay, so, and what I want to do on here is I want to, let's see, that's our wing reference, that's another reference, so many references. Let's double check our chat. Okay, cool, I think we're good. All right, so now when we scrub through, I'm only stepping through using the comma and the period. So here we go, we're stepping through, our wing is, we've kind of started to get a block out of our wing going. Okay, we're half an hour in, pretty good. Okay, we've got some work to do. What I want to do is on this pullback here, remember how we spread the fingers out, the membrane stuff out on the way down? I want to pull those in so that it's coming back. So there's a couple different ways to do that. What would be nice is if I could start from more default. So once again, what I'm going to do is I'm going to take, I'm going to middle drag to this pose, and then I'm going to pick all of my wing fingers, and I'm just going to press the S key. Okay, and what's going to happen is now, oh bummer, I might have accidentally picked the wrist control as well. I did. Undo. Thank you, undo. Okay, so let's do that again. We're going to drag this over, and this time we're going to make sure we don't have our wrist control. We're going to press the S key, and you'll see we have our wrist. This is kind of our default, and we just need to do a little bit of tweaking to this. So let's go back to local space. Actually, I think we're going to do them all at the same time. So let's just pick all these controls and get a little bit of overlap like so. And then let's bring back our visuals so I can just pick and animate them in space. Let's see, I think this is the wing. Yeah, this is the ring. So let's take these, for example, bring these together. Same thing here with our middles. Let's take our middles, kind of get that nice, like the fingers are coming together pose. Okay, this looks distracting, but it's not actually doing anything. It's not actually bound to anything, so we'll just get it out of the way so it's not too distracting. Okay, so now when we scrub, our wing is splaying out its fingers, so it's getting wide. When it comes down, they stay wide, and then they start to kind of compress back together on the way back up. And actually, I think it would be cool cooler if it was even more. And we'll see how this looks once we put it all together. Okay. Okay, and then we have our up pose. Okay, so there's going to be some additional tweaks to this as we go, but overall, we kind of have some of our default poses for this wing now. Undo. Okay. Now we do need a couple other things, but let me show you what happens now. So we've got our poses laid down. We've got keys set. Our left wing is flapping, but our timing's messed up. We don't know our timing's messed up right now because I've just been putting poses in place. I haven't really cared about what time it is. But if I press play on this, oh, that looks pretty rough so far. So, and that is because as I said, we're taking no account for timing. So let's go ahead and fix some of our timing and see if we can't start to dial this in. I am going to take a bunch of this stuff and move it over. Now, you notice what I'm doing here. I've collapsed the control rig and I'm using an Unreal feature where I'm taking this top keyframe, which is literally dragging all of the keyframes underneath it for anything set on any control within this control rig. So this is a really cool way for me to retime a bunch of stuff all at once. So I can just move it over quickly without having to do it one at a time, which is great. So I'm going to bring this down to about 25 frames here in a second. Let me get this dialed in for you all. And I'm going to show you a couple other things. Okay, so our down, let's see here. So this is our down, and I think we kind of want this to hit about, well, it's not totally our down. Let's hit this around frame, let's try frame 5-ish on this. Okay, and then this is going to be kind of our overlapping pose. We don't need a ton there. And then we're going to bring this back up. So our up, let's put our up right around frame, let's say 13-ish. Actually, it's going to have to be a little later based on the way I'm set up right now. But we'll get it. And then we're going to come back. This is going to be about frame 21 or so. For right now, it's good enough, close enough. Now, well, we have a problem though, because what happens is when we finish, our wing comes up and then stops. It doesn't keep going. But we want to be able to see what this looks like in context. Also, just to see what that did, you can see the timing is already feeling a little bit better, but a little mechanical. We're going to fix the mechanical nature about it. This is all part of the animation game. So first things first, I need to get back to the pose I started from, because this is supposed to be a hover idle cycle. So it keeps playing over and over and over again. So what I'm going to do is exactly what we've done before. I'm going to go to the first frame. I'm going to middle drag out to where I want my last frame to be. And I think we're going to go for like somewhere around 25-ish to start for now. And I'm just going to go ahead and set a key on the entire control rig. Now, the other thing that I'm going to do is I am going to bring up our curve panels. Okay, so right now, before I bring this up, let me just show you where we're at. If we press play, it plays one time. And then we have the loop that it's going through. And so we kind of do have our looping action. But when I drag past the end of the timeline, you'll notice that my keys stop. It stops moving. I would like to be able to drag back and forth so I can see what happens as the cycle comes back around to the beginning just by dragging past the end of our current time frame. And we can do that. This works just like it does in Maya and other tools. If I bring up all my curves, what I can do is with this control rig, I can take all of these curves and I can change my end post. This is our post infinity setting. I can change it to cycle. By doing that, now when I scrub past, you'll notice my wing keeps going. And this is easier for me to see how this is transitioning. Okay? Okay, cool. So we're starting to get this dialed in a little bit better. Let's take this. I'm going to move this to frame 26. Sure, let's make this smaller. Let's try 100. Not 1,000, 100. Let's try 75. Okay, and then I want this to be, there we go. And then let's take the end of our time frame. Now, I'm going to take the end of my time frame and I'm going to set it to frame 24. 1 frame before the end. Why am I doing that? Because remember, the first pose and the last pose are exactly the same. So in a cycle, what would happen is as it gets to that, it goes back to the beginning. That 1 frame is going to be repeated twice, so there'll be a slight hitch. So that's why I'm setting my playback range to be slightly less than my total. And so now when I press play, I get a smooth flapping motion. Now, this isn't great yet. It's not great yet. It's probably not going to be great in an hour, by the way, just to set expectations. But we're getting there. We have a flap. The character's moving. Let's add some more to it. But before we do that, let's just double check how we're doing with the chat. See if we have any questions. Okay, is the process used for all animators, locomotion, cinematic, montages, everything? That's a really good question. I'm going with no. So part of the goal here is what is available in Unreal. Do we have what we need to be able to animate entirely? But I think that there are pipeline implications of how and where you decide to animate. And so generally speaking, I would say by and large, most of the stuff I've seen, animation is done in a separate app. Like Maya, like Blender, whatever it is, and then those things are exported and brought in. But I'm not gonna, like, again, spoiler alert, I actually, with a couple of tweaks, a couple of tools, I think I would be okay animating in Unreal. And we're gonna get into some of those things here in a second. So, okay, so we've got a couple issues. We got some little hitches and stuff like that in our animation here, but that's okay. We'll deal with that in a minute. Let's take a look at giving this character some lift. Like, there's no up and down, it's very flat. So the way this works, generally speaking, is when the wings finish their push, what's going to happen is that is generally going to be somewhere around there is the high point, because the body is going to float up and down as the character is flapping its wings, right? So let's pop this up. And let's go back to world space. By the way, to do that without clicking it, I'm pressing Control plus the backtick. So let's move this up. Now, I don't know how far up, and I'm going to show you a couple things. Another tool for animators, which is, let's just exaggerate it for now, and that's the curve editor. I cheated and showed you a little bit of it a second ago, but we're going to do it again. So I've just set this key. If I bring up the curve editor and I click on my center of mass control, you can kind of see what this key looks like. And what's happening is there's no motion, and then all of a sudden it pops up. The reason for that is because, remember, we've set keys on everything as we went. And so as a result of it, this thing only moves over 1 frame. So what I'm going to do is I'm just going to window drag in here, and I'm going to delete everything in the middle. So now what's going to happen is, as I, let's see, where can I put this that you all will still be able to see this? Put this up here. Okay, so what's going to happen now is as I drag, as I play this, you'll notice that my character now has up and down motion. Okay, and from here we can tweak it. It's a little bit much, right? Character's moving a little bit much. Also, let's just see if we can dial it down. So there's a couple tools that are available. We could use in-between tools. We can do all kinds of stuff. I'm just going to use the good old-fashioned middle drag, and let's just say I don't want quite that much. I'm just going to middle drag I'm going to go back in time, let's say 2 frames, 3 frames, and I'm going to middle drag to the frame I'm on. I'm going to set a key. What that's going to do is it's automatically going to copy the position I was at to the frame I want, and so the up and down is not going to be quite as much. So it's a little more subtle now. Or I could come in here in the curves and I can change it. However, because I rotated my center of mass into place, which normally I call center of gravity, by the way, but anyways, because it's into place, I am no longer perpendicular to the y-axis or z-axis in Unreal. So you'll see it's changing on 2 axes. That's fine, because I can use all these other tools to dial this back if I want to. Now, the other thing that's happened as a result of this is we're going to want to start to get in and layer in some overlap here. All right, so right now you'll notice that when our character goes up, there's no reaction in the head, there's no reaction in the tail, there's no reaction in the legs, nothing. It's already 12:11. Holy cow, we got a lot left to do. So let's do some quick overlap in the head and neck. And we're just going to keep this simple. As it comes down, the goal here is, actually, you know what? We need to make one change. I don't think we put our spine in a good default pose. It's pretty up. Let's pull this down. This is gonna mess up our wings a bit, which is a bummer, but we'll fix it. Oops, undo. So what I'm doing here is I'm just keying my spine to match the first frame. Okay, I think that's a better spine position. So this is our up. Now we're going back to our neck, which we were working on. And the goal, let me make sure my head is. Let's do one other thing. Let's take our neck C and our head and rotate these so the head is looking forward. Okay. And then what I'll do is, once again, key all of these. Probably would have been faster for me to just delete the keys and redo them, but that's okay. This will work. Okay. Okay, so what's happening is now at our peak, our neck is coming down. What I want is, in a pose standpoint, my neck is going to come down to counter the up of the body, and then my head is going to tilt up a little bit. Let's see here. No, our head's going to tilt down a little bit because the character's head, generally speaking, on like birds and stuff like that, like their heads bob. Even like cheetahs when they're running, their heads stay in place, and their whole body's moving around behind them because they're locked on their prey or whatever it is they're doing. So let's take all of these controls and once again with our curve editor, delete everything around it so we can see what that counter animation looks like. Because once again, we need all of this stuff to go away. So let's do that. Okay. So now our head is kind of countering all throughout. All right. We can do the same thing with the tail. We can do the same thing with everything, but let's fix our wings now because we definitely probably messed them up a bit when we did that. It's not that bad. It's not that bad. Okay, cool. So I'm going to hide these controls so I can see, and let's see what we look like. Okay, the head bob's a little bit much. So what we can do is we can dial that back a little bit. If we take our head control, we bring up our curves, and we look at the head control. And I want to look at my pitch and yaw. Wait, did I lose my keyframes? Oh, I did. I lost my keyframes. I lost my keyframe on the head. That's okay. We can put it back in. So as the head comes down, let's see here. No, I do want the head to go down. And then as the head comes forward, it's going to go up. And we need that as our last pose too. Okay, so let's just double check in our curve. Here we go. And I just want to look at the pitch. And if we zoom in on this, let me find the key settings I need. I'm just going to make it bigger. Okay, so this is a bit much. So what I want to do is I just want to dial this back a little bit just by holding it down. Okay, and that's going to dial back my head motion. Okay, not bad. Now, let's talk about a couple other things. So we're going to get into hitching and fixes to the hitches and stuff like that. But let's do the same thing for the legs. And what we'll do is we'll take the upper leg, and we're basically going to counter animate it to account for some of the same up and down motion. So as the character comes up, our upper leg is actually going to drag a little bit. And then what we want to do is, much like we did before, let's bring back our curves and let's just delete everything. So what that is going to do is, as the character comes up, the leg's going to come up, and as it goes down, etc. And then what we'll do is we'll offset that. So for example, the lower leg will be behind the upper leg, so it's going to have a little bit of a delay on it. And then our ankles, our foot controls, I do not actually like where our foot control is right now, so we are going to change that. But what's happening is, you can see when I made that change to the foot control, or the lower leg, once again we have this big spike curve because we set keys on everything, but I can go ahead and I can delete all this stuff. So let's just delete all this, so that now we get this nice, and you can see what the cycle looks like here in the graph. You can see the nice kind of cycle to it. This is for our lower leg, and we're going to take a look at our foot. And what I'm going to do is, on this frame, I'm also going to animate my foot to drop back a little bit, just so I can get the curve to show up. So here's the curve. First off, this value right here is -48. Now, just like you can in Maya and other apps, if I want, I can type in here -48. So what I could do is I can just window drag, pick all of these keys, and I can just type in -48. So that's more kind of what I'd like as a default pose. And then for my overlap, I'm going to put a little bit more on top of that. And then just like we did with the others, I'm going to delete the stuff around it. So I have this nice kind of smooth overlap, and let's just see what that looks like in our leg. Okay, our leg's moving a bit. Now, I still think this leg could be up a little bit more, kind of tucked in a little bit more. So what we'll do is we'll take our upper leg control, and then you can do this while it's playing if you want to, so I can see. What I'm going to do is I'm going to take this and I'm going to move it upward. So it's a little bit more like that. Okay, cool. Okay, thanks for hopping in, Westons. Have a great day. So that's our leg. We're going to do the same thing. We have about 10 minutes left. Let's see if we can do something with our tail real quick, just so we have something. And then I'll show you all how to mirror this over to the other side and how to plug it all in. So tails are fun. So let's do this. As the character comes up, same thing, tail's going to not move because we only picked one. The tail is going to come down a little bit. And this is going to be a little exaggerated at first. And we're going to have to dial it back. But let's just get this going. Okay, and then much like we did with the other controls, I'm going to delete everything around it for now, kind of let this do its thing, and then what we'll do is so the tail's going down and comes back up. You know. Now at the top, I think it could come down more for sure. Let's do a little bit more. Oh, you know what? It's not coming down at all. I think I might have deleted some stuff. Whoops. Okay, we'll just do that for now. Okay, cool. Actually, you know, from an animator's perspective, we've got a lot of problems. Everything's there's lots of different things that are happening here. We have twinning, everything's moving at the same time, etc. We want to offset that. I don't want to do it yet, specifically because what I'm going to be doing next is the mirroring stuff. So, but before we do the mirroring stuff, let's take a look at one more thing. We have some hitches going on in our wing that just look funky when you look at them. And actually, interestingly enough, I found this. If we change this, can I do this? Oh, if we go to lit, if I change this to negative, I can kind of use this to just focus on the silhouettes. So this is a cool tool. for all you animators out there, you can basically blow out your settings so you can focus on the shapes. You can see we've got some pretty rigid stuff going on. Towards the end of our wing flaps, we'd want to make this a lot more just kind of organic, but for now we can just go back to game settings. But I work unlit. Now, quick thought on that. I turn everything that's fancy off when I'm animating. The reason I do that is because if I have the pretty effects and I have the pretty colors and the skin and everything, it can make my animation look better than it actually is. And so I don't like to get lulled, because as an animator, you start with nothing. This is one of the cool things about animation. You start with nothing, and then you spend some time making it move. And because you started with nothing, when you look at it, you're like, oh, that looks really cool, it's moving. But it doesn't. Because if anybody else looks at it, they're like, what is that thing? Sometimes they can't even tell what it's doing. So it's really good to have outside help, outside feedback when you're working with animation. Feedback in animation is a huge part of the discipline and the genre and stuff, and it's good implementations because it's a lot like when you used to read the story, or when you used to write something in English and you didn't realize that the thes and the ands weren't there, because when you read it, your mind fills it in. What happens with your animation is the same thing. You look at it too much and your mind fills in to make it look good, but it's not actually good. And so you either need to walk away for a little bit or have some outside feedback and to help give you notes and figure out how to do this the right way. Okay, so let's take a look at how we can fix a couple of these things and find them. A great example is our upper arm. I believe this is going to be our left wing, upper wing. What you can do is we can see we kind of have a lot of these flat spots. Welcome. Oh, honey badger, welcome. Okay, so you can see in here what we've got is in our animation we have these curves that are flowing, and all of a sudden they just go flat. This flat is very inorganic. So what I'm going to do is I'm going to just adjust these to not be so flat, so we get a much better kind of smoother motion. And then we're going to go back and look and see. It's kind of moving backwards here before coming forwards. Ooh. All right, so there's one other thing I want to check. It is possible that because of the way Euler rotations work, if you don't know what those are, what it means is you rotate an object in a 3D application, rotate X, Y, and Z. Well, actually, the math behind that can get confused, and if you were to rotate something 360 degrees, it would look like the same position, but it's not. It's a 360 degree difference. So a lot of times animators use something called an Euler filter to fix that. So there is an Euler filter if you, let's see, if you right click in here, where is it? I can't. Hold on a second. Okay, that time it popped up. Right click, and there's a filter button down here. If you click on that, there's a whole bunch of filters that you can use. I don't know if we have an Euler flip here, but I just want to double check to make sure we don't. So if I click Euler, I pick my 3 curves, I can click apply. Nothing changed. This is not an Euler problem. This is just a me not animating well problem. So let's see if we can tweak this slightly so that we don't have let's see here. I can't. I'm used to much more screen space, you all, but I'm trying to keep everything on screen so you can see what I'm doing. Okay, so let's see here. As we come up, we're kind of rotating. I think it's our X rotation that's causing the problem here. Let's see if we can dial that back a little bit. Yeah, okay. So I think this will help with this a little bit. Undo. Undo. If you middle click, it'll accidentally add one for you. I don't want to do that. Oh, having problems with the keys. There we go. All right, that's a little better. It does rotate out quite a bit when it goes through this point at the top. So I think what we're going to do is we're going to actually add a key in here. So let's take the up wing and move it back. So let's just see. Yeah, we definitely have some wonky stuff going as it comes through. Part of the problem is, for some reason, we are way forward. I think we just messed up this last pose, is all it is. I think we can delete that key actually. Okay, that's better. And then let's take okay, cool. Okay, so let's talk about mirroring. So let's just say that we're happy with the way this looks. All right, when we press play, things look pretty good. Okay, we're missing a little bit of overlap. We can add some stuff in if we wanted to. As this comes back here, for example, as we're coming up through this pose, you can see all these fingers. If I simply just grab, and this is also my problem with animation, because I can sit here and I can work on this forever, just to kind of clean this up so that it looks a little bit more. And what we're going to get as a result of that is we're going to get a nicer, you'll see as if you follow this wingtip with your eyes, we're going to get a nicer like overlap that's going to make that feel more natural as it comes through there. But we digress. Okay, so how did I find a way to mirror this? So here's what we're going to do. We are going to, in our outliner over here, I'm going to take all of the left controls that we have. I'm going to pick them all. Let's go underbar left. And we are going to create a pose with them. I'm getting rid of my curls. And there is a pose tool. So if we bring up our pose tool, what we're going to do is I'm going to put this pose in, interesting, it's not letting me choose a different folder, so we'll just go with this for now. This is going to be, we're going to create a new pose. I'm going to call this is frame 0. I'm going to call this pose left mirror 0, 0. The reason I'm doing this is because I'm going to be creating a bunch of these. When we do this, this creates a pose of our current wing position. Legs, everything. Now, with a little bit of work over here on the right, I'm going to, in the pose editor, change the mirror settings to match our current rig. I'm going to go left and right. I'm going to click mirror. And you'll notice that when I click this, it'll say there's 44 mirror string matches, which is cool. I'm also going to bring back my controls so you can see what's selected right now. Now what I'm going to do is I'm going to select the mirror controls and then I'm going to paste the pose. And you'll notice that my wing adjusts on the right sides. And I also have all the keying set up, so that's all great. So now we got to go do the same thing right here. And this is why I did not do this until later, because it takes a little bit. So if we unmirror and I select the controls, what I can do is I can come and now I can create another pose, and this is frame 6. I'm going to call this left mirror frame 6. I am going to create the asset, and then I'm going to do the exact same thing I did before. I'm going to pick it here. I'm going to click on mirror. It's going to tell me I know it's matching. I'm going to select the controls and then I'm going to paste the pose. So now my right side matches, so you can see, and we just need to do this for each of them. So here we go again. Let's, I can right click on the pose, select the controls. I'm going to undo the mirroring thing right here for right now. I'm going to create the pose, and this is frame 10. So this is going to be our frame 10. This would be a whole lot easier if I just had a tool that was a mirror button, but I don't. So once again, we're staying with what we got. if I were going to continue to work in Unreal, I would absolutely be building out a couple of these tools. And it's not hard. It's all open API. You can do it with the editor widget. It's just, I'm also not giving up 20 plus years, 25 plus years of Maya experience either. Okay, so we got a few more to do. Let's, this is frame 15. So let's select the controls. Let's create a pose. We'll call this mirror frame 15. We're almost there, you all. We are going to be a little bit over, but we are going to plug this in so you can all see this, how all this works and comes together. So let's, we're at frame 15, select, paste the pose, and then we've got one more to go, and that's going to be our frame 21. So let's take this, select the controls, create the pose. This is frame 21. Create the asset. Over here, click on mirror, select the controls, paste the pose, and then we have one more to do. But remember, we don't have to remake the pose because our last frame is our first frame. So what we can do is we can click on the asset, select the controls, go ahead and do the mirror, select controls, and paste the pose. Okay, so now, just by doing that, theoretically, we now have a flapping animated idle that we can use. Holy smokes, you all. 3 minutes over. 3 minutes over. Now, look, there's a lot of things about this that, as I mentioned, you could sit here and tweak. There's a lot of things about the way the overlap and the wings works and things like that. A couple other cool things from a tools standpoint before we go to export this and plug this into our game is, let me show you a couple cool things just from a cool animated reference. Remember this original pose reference that we were using with all these kind of cool little arcs and everything? One of the things that you can do is you can take, if I go back in my outliner, if I take this and I look at my hierarchy, if I go down my left index, this is the furthest most tip of my wing. What I can do is I can turn on trails, they're called. So if I click on trails over here on the left and I bring this up, I can choose show trails. When I do that, if I make them thicker, I can see. Now, what is cool about this is what it's actually showing me, if I increase my timeline, is it's showing me the arc that my wing is taking, that those controls are taking in 3D space. So what's really cool about this is visually, we kind of almost had a little bit of the figure 8, but you can see the actual shape it's fairly organic. It's not that far off. If we were to pick our wrist, for example, you can kind of see the path the wrist is taking. This is a really powerful tool. In addition to the graph editor to be able to look for hitches, you can use these arcs to kind of see what's going on. So, for example, on that wingtip, we know there's a little bit of a visual hitch right here at frame 15. What's happening is, because of the way we've animated it, our wing is lifting up. Our wing is lifting up so much at this point that what's happening is there's a little upward pop in our wing flow. It would be better, maybe, if that was a little bit smoother. So let's see if we can smooth that out. Oh, I was not at frame 15. Let's go to frame 15. So just by doing that, we can kind of smooth it into place a little bit. Maybe what we would have to do is come back here and add a key to lift that and add one on the other side. But I'm not going to do that because that's going to mess up a bunch of stuff. The overall point is you can use this as a cool visual thing and use that to help fix and tweak this out. The other thing we potentially could do is in probably our collab up here. Now, one other thing that's worth mentioning is normally when I animate these, I like the clavicle to drive everything. I didn't take the time to go back, but I like the clavicle to move down first and up first. I didn't get a chance to do that overlap. We just didn't have the time. Okay, but point is, you've created your animation, you animated it, you've mirrored it all out. Everything looks great. Maybe you want to go through and put some offsets in here, so like your entire wing You know, for example, if you wanted to, we could do, let's do this. Let's take the entire left side of the body, and I'll show you all another tool. Okay, and let's just say, oh, actually, let's get rid of our trails. Just like in some of the other tools that I'm used to working for, let's just say that you wanted this wing to arrive, a frame sooner. You can still do all the plus equal stuff up here for values. So if I just want to shift it to the right once, I can do plus equals 1, and this is going to shift the frame over by 1. And what that's going to do visually now is I've got a little bit of an offset in my animation. My wings aren't arriving at the same time. So really the polish of this is going to be a whole lot of overlap, offsetting things, tweaking things so they're not all arriving at the same time, really kind of bringing this home and making it look good. But there are a lot of really cool tools. So let's go ahead and export this and pull this into our game and see what this looks like. How do we export this? What we can do is we can take and we right click on our control rig, and we can bake out our animation sequence, and we can put this into our Anim folder, and I'm going to call this the Anim sequence, and this is Zar hover idle, for example. We'll click OK. I'll keep all the options. We'll export that, and then we will, let's just save this so we have it so we can get back to it. I'm going to close my sequencer just in case. Hopefully this doesn't crash in the last few minutes. This is now our Zar hover idle. So if we open this and we look at this and we play it, all right, not bad. Not as good as the stuff that I did in prep for this, because you know, I got lost in it at, you know, midnight type thing. But you can see there's a difference. Like all of the feet are offset, the fingers are kind of coming together, the head just feels a little more organic, tail's not so, you know, whatever, but the overall gist is there. So great, how do we plug this in? Well, dude, this is awesome. Let's go back to our map, and what we're going to do for our third person maps, let's go to our third person map. Sure, let's save everything, why not? Okay, so if you recall, in our third person map, currently we have our dragon, and our dragon, or wyvern, when we play, if we possess our dragon, we can fly around and we can move it and make it fly, etc. But it's not moving. So let's bring it all the way home and let's update it so that it's moving. All we're going to do is we're going to go into our blueprint, which is our pet blueprint, and we are going to open the full blueprint editor. And what I'm going to do is I'm going to get rid of our static mesh. Poof. Okay? And I'm actually going to clear it entirely. Nothing there. Then I'm going to add in our skeletal mesh instead, which is here. So we want Zar for this. And I need the X skeleton. That is something that is worth mentioning. Why do I have two Zars now? Well, turns out the pose tools cannot mirror if X isn't down the length of the joint. Remember, this character is like 15, 20 years old, and Y was down the joint. It was pre-Unreal. I had to go back and rebuild the entire character just to get mirroring to work. Okay, so we now have Zar in here, and I'm not going to set up an animation blueprint. That's future class us. But what we are going to do is we're going to use an animation asset, and we are going to use our Zar idle 2. When we compile this, when we play now, you'll notice that he's already flying. Dude, I mean, come on, right? That's cool. So what we can do is, if we possess this character, actually I need to escape out real quick. Okay, so if we possess our dragon, oh, also I have him facing the wrong way, but anyways, now he's kind of flying around, which is kind of fun. So a couple of quick comments. Let's just bring him towards camera if I can. But it's cool. Okay, so a couple quick comments. Why didn't I do the idle for the drone as part of this? The idle for the drone is literally just spinning props, right? It's basically just our props spinning. And as a result of that, there's just not a lot of animation to be done there, and I kind of wanted to show people who'd never seen animation what the process was, the setting of the keys, the potentially laborious part about it, you know, frame by frame type stuff, as well as just some of the tools. If you're just spinning a prop 360 degrees, that's one. Two, there's questions about whether or not you have motion blur settings and things like that. And three, in the end, you might actually just end up using a cheat for the props. When the blades are spinning, it's literally just a disc with a texture on it that makes it look like it's spinning instead. So you don't even have that animation that's actually going on. Whew. We made it, y'all. That is it. So that is kind of our tutorial for today. We are going to be tying this back into our Anim blueprints and things like that in our upcoming series. Before we wrap it up, does anybody have any questions about animation before we call it a day? Okay. Everybody who was here, anybody who hopped in while I was talking and I didn't get a chance to say hi, thanks for hopping in. Agua, it was good to see you back. Emra, it was good that you made a stream. It's awesome. As always, if you like the channel, you think what we're doing here is a good thing, help us out. Spread the word. Throw your comments down below. Let us know what kinds of stuff you would like to see going forward. Don't forget, we have, if you want to show your support for the channel, we have the Patreon, the Super Chats, and all those kinds of things. My name's Kevin. Thanks for hopping in. I hope to see you all again in an upcoming live stream. We're going to be continuing this series. We're going to be talking a little bit about the Anim blueprint for this guy, AI, maybe make them attack if there's enemies in the scene, and then we'll probably wrap up our pets before moving on to the next series. So I hope everybody has an amazing weekend, and I will catch you all on the next one. Later.